Hello and welcome back to the Joyful Soul Creates. Charlotte here, and today I'm sharing a Wintry Valentine's card that I made with the Simon Says Stamp January card kit, which is called Snow Much. This is my design team project for the Anything Goes challenge at Watercooler Wednesdays this week, and I will have a link to that challenge down below if you'd like to come and play along with us. This card kit is sold out, but I will link to all the products that are available individually that I've used down in the description box below if you would like to find those. If you want to see what else came in the kit, I will link to an unboxing up in the top right hand corner. To start off, I cut a panel of watercolor paper down to the size I wanted, and I'm going to stamp the larger penguin from the Snow Much stamp set and also the sentiment that says I'm snow in love with you onto my little panel, and I played around and worked out how I wanted them arranged. I'm using MFT Black Licorice Hybrid ink for my stamping, and I'm going to stamp a couple of times because I think my ink pad needs re-inking. It wasn't giving a very good impression at first. Then I'm also going to stamp the same penguin just onto a post-it note. You could use a post-it note or scrap paper or masking paper for this, and I'm going to be creating a little mask with it. I didn't bother re-inking the stamp. There was enough ink left on the stamp that I could see the shape well enough to cut around it. So then I'll just fussy cut around it with my scissors, nothing special here. When you're cutting your masks, you want to be very slightly within the line of the stamping so that it doesn't leave a gap around when you go over the mask, if that makes sense. When you put your mask in place, you want to make sure that your background or additional stamping that you're adding over the mask will come right up to the edge of your image. Once I'd fussy cut that out, I did add some Tombow Monomulti liquid glue to the back of it because this isn't a full sticky post-it note, and also I found that it wasn't as sticky as I would have liked. It's a bit of an older post-it note. So using this glue, once you let it dry, it will become repositionable. So whilst I'm letting it dry off a bit, I'll also add a piece of post-it tape along the bottom of my panel to create like the ground area, and then I'll put the penguin mask over the top as well. Then I'm going to start my ink blending, and I'm using Distress inks for my blending today. I'll start with Spun Sugar, which is very pale pink, and put that all over the panel. I realised that my black ink was smudging a bit, so I just quickly heat set that with my heat gun to try and stop that from smudging. It's probably because I'd stamped it 3 times to get it dark enough, so it was quite a thick layer of ink. Then I'll just keep going over with this Spun Sugar, and this is watercolor paper, so I find it blends quite easily. I know other people like to use, for example, Bristol Smooth paper, but it's a good idea to experiment and find out what works best for you. Once I'd got the Spun Sugar all over my sky area, I then went in with the milled lavender, and I'm coming up from the horizon line with this. Milled lavender is kind of a purpley colour, still quite pale. I'm trying to keep my colours quite soft, and I'm just blending up with this in circular motions and blending it out towards that pink. And once I am happy with the coverage of that, I'm going to bring in an even darker purple, which is Seedless Preserves. And I'm just going to put this right along the very edge of that horizon line just to really emphasize the purple there. And this will also help the snowy horizons, the ground, to stand out a bit more against that sky. Once I think that I've got enough of that dark purple, I'll go back in with the milled lavender to blend it out and soften the edges towards that pink. And then again in with the Spun Sugar just to finish blending it all together. And if you have difficulty getting a good blend with your Distress inks, then just keep going back and forth between the colours and softening the lines, and as you keep going it should get easier. Once I'd finished my ink blending and I let the panel dry a bit to make sure that my embossing powder won't stick where I don't want it, I started adding snowflakes using each of the snowflake sizes that come in the stamp set and some clear embossing ink. I then covered the snowflakes with Wow Cloud9 embossing glitter and heat set that. I find it's easiest to heat set from the back to avoid blowing the glitter off before it's set, and then any loose glitter that's got over the other areas of the panel can just be brushed off with a brush, because the glitter itself does not heat set, it's the embossing powder it's mixed with that's heat set. So if there's any any loose glitter that will be able to be brushed off. I did add a couple more snowflakes to fill it in and added some more embossing powder and heat set those as well. And then I can remove all my masks from the image. Once I had removed them, I did decide to go and re-stamp the sentiment and the image, which is why I'd left them in my MISTI. This way it'll just really crisp up the black of them, especially the sentiment where it wasn't masked off and the distress inks had gone over it. It had kind of muted the colour a bit. Then I'm going to quickly go in with my Spectral Noir Illustrator markers and just colour in the beak of the penguin. As I said earlier, this is watercolour paper, which is not ideal for using with alcohol markers, but it does work. It's just, it may drink up a lot of the ink from your pen, so you don't want to do too much colouring with your pen, with your alcohol markers on watercolour paper. I'll add a few more snowflakes with my Sakura Jelly Roll Stardust gel pen, and I'm making sure that some of these overlap the penguin as well so that they are in front of the penguin. Actually, it might have made more sense to let my bigger snowflakes go in front of the penguin as well, but it doesn't matter too much. I also used a white gel pen to add some shine to the eyes and the beak, and also onto the right hand side of the penguin, which is where I'm imagining my light source is coming from. I generally do my colouring that the shadows are on the left and the light is on the right. I find that having this consistency in my colouring means that I generally don't have to think too hard about where my light source and shadows should be. Then I'm going to just trim off the edges of that panel because I didn't want the harsh lines where the distress ink had built up on the edges. And I'll set that to one side whilst I work on my banner elements. I didn't have any coloured papers that were quite what I wanted, so I'm just going to make my own with my Illustrator markers again. So I just have some snippets of cardstock, white cardstock, and I'm just scribbling over them with my alcohol markers. I'm doing one dark grey, one light grey, and then I will also do a light pink one. And this is a really good way to get custom colours of cardstock if you don't have what you want, or if you want to make sure it perfectly matches your colouring on your card, for example. I then trimmed the strips down and I'm going to carefully cut banner ends into them just with my scissors. You could also do this with a die or a punch if you have appropriately sized ones. I only have one banner die and it was a bit smaller than I wanted, so I just did them by hand this time. I used a piece of washi tape to hold the pink and dark grey banners together, put some double-sided tape on the back of them, and then I'm going to adhere them to my card base. And I have the other elements of the card in position just to use as a guide. Once I had those banners stuck down, I can remove that piece of washi tape because it's no longer needed. It was just to hold them in place. For my focal panel, I'm going to use some foam tape to pop it up because I wanted it to have some dimension and a bit more interest. So I just put foam tape all over the back of that and then add that to the card. And I do use the lines of my grid mat to help me make sure it's how I want it positioned and hopefully straight as well. Then the remaining banner is going to overlap that panel, so there needs to be foam tape and double-sided tape so that the bit that overhangs the edge of the focal panel is on foam tape and the bit that's on the focal panel is just double-sided tape. And once I'm happy with that position, I'll press it into place, and that completes my Penguin Valentine's card. If you have any questions or comments about this card, you can leave them in the comment box down below, and I'd love to hear if you've made anything with this card kit or if you've made many Valentine's cards yet this year. I've made a few. You may have already seen some of the videos for them. If you liked this video, do press the like button, and if you didn't like it, then the dislike button is right next to it. There are a couple of other videos on screen if you'd like to see some more from me right now, and if you want to be able to see more of my videos in future, then you can press the subscribe button that's on screen too. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye!